Easy on the girls.
Go ahead and call the USD 49 Board of Education meeting to order for Monday, January 19th, 2015. First order of business is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Schwartz, second by Board Member Patterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. At this time, we do have audience participation. If anybody would like to come forward and address the board, this will be your first and only chance to do so at this time. Yes, please. And just please state your name.
Jill Seller.
Okay.
I am a parent who has a child at Hayes Middle School and a child at Roosevelt. We were told at the beginning of the school year that busing our student from HMS to Roosevelt after school might be an option. And then we were told that it had gotten tabled to the spring semester, so I was just here to find out what we might need to do to get that ball rolling again.
Dean, do you have any update on that?
Well, what we had looked at, the cost of transportation and busing again, and I know there was a few families, and obviously you're one of those that had asked before, and at this time, I'm still not going to recommend that we should start busing between the two. I know it's an inconvenience for some, but I just think the way we are with budget and everything, I need to start something that we've already addressed.
Okay.
Would you be willing to let parents pay a fee for it? Because the parents that I know that would utilize the service, we would not mind being charged a fee because we realize it's not something you guys have to provide. You would be doing it simply to be nice to us, and we would be willing to pay a fee if you would be willing to consider doing that.
Is that something we can look at, or have we looked at per
We
person?
can look at, I'll have Russ see what it would cost to, if we would do it, what it would be, but I can have him come up with the cost and then bring that back the work session.
Future meeting.
Okay. Is that for a future meeting?
I
Okay.
by chance know like when that might be. Would it be the next work session?
The next work session, I'll have that and we'll discuss it, put it on that agenda.
Sorry.
And
Okay.
just another question I had. When you say a fee, are you willing to support it in its entirety? Like if it costs $14,000 to do that, are you talking like a $50 a year fee, or are you talking about covering the entire $14,000?
Well, I think it would probably be, like a $50 a year fee. I mean, it would probably just depend on what you guys would discuss and then, approach us with that. I don't imagine it would cost that much, but, but if you get enough parents who are willing to pay the fee, you may get close to, maybe not that number, but you may get close to covering the cost.
Do you have a number of parents that are interested in it?
No, because we were also told that there was going to be a questionnaire sent out at the middle school to parents to ask how many would be willing to utilize that service. In the past, I know the parents that have used it have said the bus from the middle school to Roosevelt has been 3 children on each seat. So I know the bus is full. I don't know how many, but I know that there's a lot of parents who have children at those locations.
Okay.
I'm one of them.
Is there a way that we can try to get to a number of interested parents easily?
I am not sure. One thing I did when I got in this earlier was when we were Roosevelt, we took
Yes.
a cost.
That was the issue we had before.
I mean, yeah, I think that's where we did have a lot of discussions earlier this year about that, and then it was decided where do we stop, and we can't afford to have separate busing going all over the city. But maybe if we could figure out what kind of numbers we're talking about and to which schools, and then talk about routing. Is there a way to do
Dean,
that?
I think, I mean, probably you guys just need to make a decision if you're ready to put it on the agenda. But-
Well, I'll talk to Russ
It's
and
a-
see, but if we, and this is what we
Still
talked about
broke, right?
before, if we start busing, it's gonna be the same thing that we had, and,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, this is a cost-saving measure to,
Exactly. So we will put together some figures, and I'll bring that back. at least
And one of the
report.
stumbling blocks, I think, in the past, because what I was proposing is that it would not be free, it would be for a fee. It would have to cover the cost to do so, but then didn't you say that we could not in any way charge any of the children that were on free?
I think free and reduced.
And
If I-
reduced.
I think that's what we found out.
So then, once
So
you
that really
take the number of
cut back
interested
the-
less that number, can we afford to do it? But I would like to know,
Okay.
you know, look at the numbers,
Okay. We will.
if we could.
Okay, so let's make that a agenda item for the work session then.
Yeah, I'll get
Okay.
the information. Yep.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, Sally.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience? Okay, we'll move on. Item 4, school spotlights. Dean, do you want to take that over?
Sure. The first thing on the list is the high school yearbook staff, and Bill Gasper is here, that I think we'll have you come up in just a little bit. You don't have to do it right now. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about that. I'll let Bill do that. The next item, the Hanson grant was received by the foundation for $5,000 to help offset cost for families that want their children to go to after-school care. So that was obviously a nice addition to the foundation, and help families support or get their students in the after-school care. This is School Board Appreciation Month, and want to thank each and every one of you for the service that you provide. I know it isn't easy at times, and you should be commended for the time and effort you put in. It takes a lot of time. Jessica Yonker put together some treats, cookies, the vegetable tray. Help yourself to that, or audience, help yourself to that, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. And again, thank you for everything you guys do. Greatly appreciated. Then on the next note, the filing deadline for school board is coming up on January 27th by noon. So according to the newspaper, I think tonight, that no one had officially filed yet as of today. So we hopefully will have some names in the running here shortly. So just a friendly reminder of that. We do have kind of a neat thing coming to town that's going to visit or come to Lincoln and O'Laughlin schools, the Zuzu Acrobats that were on America Got Talent. Is that the right name? America's Got Talent. But they're going to be there on January 27th. If you want to see a neat little program, that would be a good one to go to. But the next one is Washington Elementary did receive a grant, Reading is Fundamental Grant, $1,260. And what they do this through the Rotary does this for them as well, but they purchase books and allow or send those home with the students so they can start developing their own library at home. So a neat thing there. And those are our spotlights for the month.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Up next is report of committees. Dean, do you want to go ahead and go first, or?
We have no reports of committees, and
Okay.
best of the best.
All right. Well, once again, we had quite a number of applications or sheets turned in for Best of the Best, and this is one of the great things that I believe is going on in the schools, is really recognizing those staff members and those students that really stand out, the ones that really continually improve the district, just going above and beyond every single day in what they do. And so we as a board want to go ahead and award one of the staff members and one of the students for this month. And I know the first staff award, he's got an entire crowd in the audience there, so what he's doing must be correct. And so with that, I would invite Mrs. Winholz, who made the nomination, to go ahead and introduce our staff Best of the Best award recipient.
Well, our staff made the nomination, but I want to thank you for recognizing Mr. Mayor as one of the best of the best. Just good thing you had a limit on the words, because we really had pages, and so that was really, really hard to come down, because I don't know, what is it, 150 words or something like that. But, so we had to be very selective with our words, so otherwise I wanted to know we started with pages. So it was very hard to narrow that all down. Mr. Mayor, if any of you know him, know that he's a very caring individual and wants the best for all of us, or best for whoever comes in, crosses his path. Now, don't take this wrong, but he's like a ping pong, okay? But, you know, he's bouncing from here to there and everywhere, and I don't know, sometimes I don't even know if he even goes to sleep at night. But a ping pong in a very skilled, managed, and driven ping pong, always with a purpose. So he wears many hats. If you've ever been around him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mr. Mayor has touched many lives and has made a difference in the staff, in the students, and in the community, as well as his family. We, Wilson staff, are proud to say Mr. Mayor deserves this award, the best of the best.
And Mr. Mayor, we'll kind of just have you pause there real quick, and we're going to go ahead and award our next student recipient, who had quite the story here. It was very impressive to hear what she had all done, and I know we've got two members of the Hays High staff that want to brag on her just a little bit, and so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
My name is Misty Garrison. I'm a school nurse over at Hays High. I'm really new to the area, but I have to say how greatly I'm impressed just with your student body population as a whole here, especially from where I'm coming from. It wasn't just me noticing Lily, but it was the repetitive things that I heard from the counseling office and the counselors and the staff that work there. So I'm going to read the letter that I wrote for Lily Mesbeck. Lily is a senior at Hays High. Lily's a student office assistant for the counselors at Hays High School. I've had the privilege of getting to know her this semester, and I'm consistently impressed with her positive, give-it-all attitude. I'm sure she's never met a stranger, and no matter who walks through her, to help and to assist them. Her positive attitude extends beyond our office, as she can be found any time on campus with a smile on her face and an encouraging word for those around her. Lily is not just a pretty smiling face. She's enthusiastic about learning and taking in any opportunity in our office to increase her knowledge. She asks questions, listens patiently, and is gracious for the opportunities. When talking with Lily, it's apparent that she has great maturity and strives to take not only the higher road, but also to help others to find the positive in a bad situation. There isn't one action that deserves Lily this honor. It's just who she is.
I'm Sherry Matlock, one of the counselors. Lily is on my caseload, but we all feel like she is ours as far as the counselors, because she is with us every office aides every year, and Lily truly is just a natural. I'm thinking about one time. Sometimes it's very calm in our office. Other times it's really, really busy. And one time I was helping a couple of students at the table get on Kansas Career Pipeline, get their account set up, do resumes, something like that. Paula, our secretary, is on the phone. Lily's in the back. The other counselors are with students in their office, and then a new parent walks with, sometimes they come in just with the whole family, sometimes it's just a parent and a student, but then they walk, and Lily has just this natural way of recognizing, and then is willing to take appropriate action. And a lot of, high school students they might be a little reserved, but she's instantly, oh, Mrs. Matlock, I can help do that Kansas Career Pipeline, and if you want to help. And so she's just seamless, and it's just amazing. And Misty said mature, and she definitely is mature. She's going to do a great job at KU. She is going into nursing, and she's currently in the allied health program. And so we are going to be blessed with a future nurse, and we congratulate you, Lily.
And at this time, if Mr. Mayor, if you and Lily would come to the board and accept your awards. And again, congratulations to the recipients and those who acknowledged them. Okay, up next we have communications from other organizations. Superintendent Cat, do you want to go ahead and lead us there?
We have a high school yearbook and journalism students, and Mr. Casper, if you want to come up and let us know what's going on and tell us all the good things.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to recognize some accomplishments of some very talented, hardworking, and dedicated students to the journalism program at Hayes High School. Tonight I have both newspaper and yearbook students here because both publications earned the All Kansas rating last year. Newspaper receives it in the spring, and then the following year, the yearbook then received All Kansas. Now, All Kansas is the highest award that you can get from the Kansas Scholastic Press Association. It's a rating. In newspaper last year, one of 4 newspapers in Class 4A earned the rating. In yearbook, one of 3 yearbooks earned the top rating. Now, what they do is they rate you in 5 different areas into each one. And to get the overall All Kansas, you need to have All Kansas distinction in 3 of 5 areas. In newspapers, coverage, reporting, design, visuals, and leadership. Newspaper earned it in coverage, reporting, design, and visuals, 4 of the 5. Yearbook was coverage, reporting, theme development, design, and photography. And again, yearbook earned it in 4 of the 5, coverage, reporting, theme development, design, and photography earned the award of commendation. Now, it's not easy winning this award. Since I've been here for 10 years, this is our second All Kansas yearbook. Newspapers had a little bit more success. We've won All Kansas 4 of the last 6 years. Last year's editors, I would be remiss not to mention them. They've graduated and gone on to bigger and better things, hopefully. Rachel Moravik and Eisel Walters in newspaper, and Sana Chima and Mackenzie Lewis in yearbook were our last year's editors. Now, I have some current yearbook and newspaper students here, all of whom were on last year's yearbook, and they need to be recognized. I have Taylor DeBoer. I have this year's editor-in-chief, Jasmine Lawson. This is her 3rd year in yearbook. Thea Furlan, another yearbook staff member. This is her 3rd year in yearbook. And Selena Jung is my co-editor-in-chief of the newspaper. Other students, of course, are very talented. They're very busy. And so some wanted to come, some did not make it. Again, these kids make me look very smart year after year after year. And for them to put up with me, first of all, that's my first accomplishment. Second, to be able to do what they do year in and year out, week after week, I'm very much appreciative. And finally, I appreciate all of you for your support and continued support of student publications, because I do think your vote and newspaper are very, very important. I've left some copies here. I did a couple of newspapers from this year and last year's yearbook, so you can kind of take a look at those. We'll leave them here. I can pick them up later. If you want to take them home and cruise them, that's great too. So again, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you, and
Thank you, and
congratulations.
congratulations.
I will have to say, Mr. Gasper, that the yearbook is quite impressive.
It is.
I mean,
Well, so
that
is
looks
the
very
newspaper.
professional, so that's to you and all your students who continually excel.
And I think they all have high hopes and expectations for going to do it again this year.
We look forward to it.
Hopefully we go backwards.
Great. Thank you.
All right, now, let's see, are there any other communications from organizations, Dean?
No.
Okay. All right, on to report of superintendent.
The first thing I want to mention is Monday, February 9th, we have a work session scheduled at the high school, and that is also the Learning Center graduation that's scheduled for here at 6 o'clock. Would you be willing to, and Marty, are you okay if we start out there later, or do you want to find a different day? Okay, I'll ask you guys, would you want to do the graduation here at 6 and then go to the high school on February 9th for the work session? Or do you want to try to do the work session on March 23rd? I mean, just have the work session here on February 9th, and then in March, go to the high school for that.
I think that makes more sense.
Okay, we will make that change and get that out then, but if that's okay with everyone else, rather than try to rush around.
You talking switch them?
Switch them so we can have the work session here the night of the
So
graduation.
move high school
So we're
to-
not-
So the
March,
9th,
okay.
we will be here, so we'll send that out to everyone. I wanted to comment on the elementary principals. Been visiting with them, and we've had the conversations about the length of contracts for principals, and I just want to give them a pat on the back for agreeing to go from 10 months to 12 months. Their contract, they will not receive extra compensation, but I just want to tell you guys how much that's appreciated, and let the board know as well that understand all the things that we need and have to do, and I appreciate their attitudes, just accepting that and going on. So as we go through contracts, that's the change will be next year.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I did hear, again, we've been talking about this property by the bus barn. Are we interested, they did make another offer. Are we interested in selling at all? If we are, I think we need to come up with a price and counter, or say this is what we want. They did change it to where they would just buy one of the lots and leave us with the other. I talked to Russ, we had vehicles in both lots, and actually said there was 13 vehicles in the one that they're trying to buy. So I told him I would bring it back and ask if that's anything. We don't have to decide tonight, but
Have our reasons changed? I thought the
No.
discussion had led that we needed to hold on to that at this time.
no, I just told him that I would at least bring that up. So.
And you said we do park vehicles in the west lot?
In
Currently
both
do?
of them, at times, yeah.
How much off-street parking is there, though? I mean, I know people park there, but if they park there because it's the closest location they can get, to whereas if we didn't have it, they could park on the street and there'd be sufficient spots, and, I mean, if we don't have a use for it, and the only thing we're doing is making a little closer spot to where people, then it might be worth it, but if we have it, or we anticipate a use.
I'll look into that as well. I'll meet with Russ and kind of see how many's there and what we have for off-street parking. But they did say that they would just try to purchase the one, since we need one or the other. So I'll do a little more work on it and bring that back. I don't have much of a state budget update, other than I'm sure most of you heard the State of the State address and all of the things. There isn't anyone that I have found that really knows what will happen. Talking about block grants for schools the next 2 years. What that means, no one really knows for sure, but it sounds like the same amount of money would be available next year, and then it would decrease after that. They're talking about the schools having to make the state portion of the CAPERS payment on top of that, which would decrease our budget. None of it, in my opinion, is going to fly with the courts. Whether that makes a difference or not, I don't know, but there's just a lot of question marks out there, so I don't have a clear picture whatsoever of what's going to happen. Obviously, the legislators are in Topeka. They'll start again tomorrow and start working through the details of that. Haven't really received anything from Kansas State Department of Ed explaining any of that yet, and normally they do. So still up in the air. I don't see a huge cut coming this year to finish this year out, but next year's budget's the one obviously that we'll be concerned about. Revenues down again. I didn't hear the governor mention anything about the severance tax on oil, which is going to be statewide, a pretty big chunk to make up as well. So going to be a tough year legislatively to see where we are. We probably won't have an answer till the very end again, but that's kind of where we are. Well, what I know anyway of the budget, which I know isn't any help right now, so that's where we are.
Do you know of any update on the current recommendation for negotiations that's in committee right now? Have you heard anything on that?
I haven't heard anything other than they're still debating, some of it, or haven't even really debated much of it, but there's a bill going to be presented that way. I don't know where that'll go. And there's also one I saw that to be able to offer teachers a multi-year contract, I assume on an individual basis. I don't know a whole lot about that one either, but all those things will be coming up through committees, and we'll get more information. So,
okay.
That is my report.
Okay. All right, up next is the approval of the consent agenda.
Financial.
Oh, sorry, skipping ahead there. Good thing you caught me. All right, up next is the financial reports, and so Tracy, do you want to go ahead and take the lead?
Sure. Through December, we've expended 37% of our total budget, so we are right on track with where we should be. And as Dean said, we're feeling a little bit more comfortable that we won't be having any cuts for this year, so that's good news. I am working on breaking out the certified and classified salaries like you guys requested. I'm having to combine a couple of reports to do that, but I should have that in January for that report. Next week, we are starting our audit, so we will have our final budget earlier this year than we did last year, which is also great. We'll keep you updated, as we hear information on that and if we need to make any adjustments. Are there any questions on the financial report?
No, I'd say good job and keep us under budget.
We're working on it.
No questions? Okay, now on to the consent agenda. And so the consent agenda, one motion to approve all the items listed below, which would include the board meeting minutes from December 15th, 2014, board work session minutes from January 12th, 2015, financial reports, which include the clerk's report, investment report, and petty cash report, personnel transactions, semi-annual Head Start SF 425 form, and then the approval of bills in the amount of $2,909,983.64. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Board Member Schwartz.
Second.
Second by Board Member Rankin. Call for the vote. All those in favor, aye? Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
I do want to comment on Nancy is here and has announced her retirement. Obviously, you just approved it. I think the press release actually was in the paper this evening, but just want to thank her for all of her time. And if I don't have the years right, please let me know. You were 17 years at O'Laughlin principal. and 28 in Hayes total teaching. She was a national board certified teacher, many honors in her teaching career. I believe 6 years in Dodge City. No. Well, where did I see that? Oh. Where were you then? I'm sorry. In Wichita. Okay, it was Dodge Elementary. That's what it was. I'm sorry. In Wichita. And 34 total years in education. And you're going to be missed. We appreciate everything you've done. O'Laughlin has received many, many honors. Just the most recent, I believe, was the Title I Distinguished School, and they're a blue ribbon school, and just one honor after another. And we thank you and what you've done for your staff and with your staff to accomplish all those things. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Harmon. On to the next agenda item, which is the old business, which is a long-run copier for the copy center.
What I would like to do on the copier, we had met with Rico and done a lot of legwork on what to do with that. And after the work session, we talked an awful lot about going paperless and decided that that's probably the direction we need to go sooner than later. And with what Rico has agreed to do, which is a one-year contract, I believe it's called their gold plan, for 1 year, that would give us the flexibility then to come develop a plan to start going paperless and those things. Roosevelt Elementary, and Lee isn't here, and his staff probably doesn't know this yet either, but they're gonna, we met with all the principals on Wednesday and went through a lot of these things and the number of copies and how we need to start changing this. And after that visit as well, we all decided, just exactly what you're saying, we need to do this now. They were very willing to start looking at these things. Lee stepped up and said, well, we'll just start with my building. We will limit the number of printers. I don't want to, they'll have printers probably in the office and things that I don't have a plan for sure. But worry about, or look at copiers. He will monitor that and what we do in this copy center and start that as the first part of the initiative to go paperless. So my recommendation, and this bid is only, or the quote was for $1,200 at the most if we use the maximum numbers that we've been running, so it'd be about $14,400 if we hit the maximum every month, which I don't foresee doing. So my recommendation is that we just do the 1 year agreement with Rico and really push the paperless initiative and limit the number of printers, and by next year have that plan in place and do that. So that's what I'm recommending. You don't have to vote on this. It's less than the $20,000 the bid would be, but I think that's a step in the right direction.
Agreed. Thank you for getting to that point.
Now, the current copier we have, that's unlimited copies? Or if we get close to pushing that max, are we just going to stop copies, or is the other one unlimited?
There's one, and Tracy might have to help me with that.
Right, the Xerox is unlimited.
Okay.
And the Rico is just 0.006 cents per copy. So, I mean, it's not like there's a limit, but yes, we would absolutely try to utilize the Xerox unlimited as much as possible.
Can we look at, in relation to that, we kind of talked at the work session about it, but getting to a policy on technology, just on the implementation of it, what the channels are. I mean, it seems to me if we need a technology director that's going to oversee all of this, they would have essentially final say, subject to your overriding it, power to implement, what technology, or to decide or give final judgment on whether or not we add technology, whether or not home and schools or building principals or whatever can just, on their own decide that. And then if they think that they're not being treated fairly, they can obviously come to you, and you would then make the final decision, or the board, if it had to get to that level. But it just seems to me that that would make more sense. I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with that. If not, then they just don't
I
do
think that would
anything.
take care of some of the issues, even like what we've seen with the different smart boards and stuff like that. We have a hodgepodge, and nothing against them. They're good to have.
It is an issue, yes.
But we seem to have different
Yeah,
brands all over the place, different support
I think
things.
and correct me if I'm wrong, principals that are here, I think we have come to the realization that we do need to be on the same page when we do any of that. Any purchase needs to go through the tech director and be approved that way, because we just can't support anything and everything. And I know that's a lot of the issues that we run into are because of that. But yes, you're exactly right. It needs to be that way, and I think we're headed there.
Currently, right now, any technology that gets put into the schools, does that go through, Brian?
It hasn't.
It will now. I don't know, like the iPads that the buildings bought, that piece has, but then again, some of those were purchased before, I think, and then they're not on our USD 489. I don't know all the terms, but if you want to push apps and some of those things, it makes it difficult if you can't even do that. So yeah, there's a lot of those things we need to work out. But it's a topic of discussion on a regular basis, and yeah, that's the point or position we want to be in sooner than later. There
Would
won't
it
be
help
any-
to get a policy in place to kind of
I think
push
it
it
would.
forward? I just think, to me, I know that you're always going to have some areas where maybe you're stepping on somebody's toes here and there, but it would just seem to make it much more clear where and how it's to happen, and then give everybody something to fall back on how.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. We can do that.
Well, and to clarify what's included, I think at the beginning of this year, when the elementary schools went to make the iPad decision, they went through Brian, but then, we have a copier purchase that maybe didn't. So,
Right.
I mean,
No,
which,
there's a lot of
I
things
think
that- yeah.
people aren't sure what, and so we need to clarify and define what we're talking about that falls under that
We will work
technology
on that.
umbrella.
We've had a lot of conversations, and we will get that put together policy-wise, and then there's no doubt about it.
And I'm not sure Brian knew he was involved in copier decisions either
No.
until
He
recently,
didn't,
so no fault there, but.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on that? Okay, on to new business, item A, the SEIU negotiations proposal.
Tracy, you want to explain that?
The whole negotiated agreement is attached, but just to touch on what changed, the base wage was increased, and in return, we decreased the number of paid holidays by 2 this year. We added probationary language for vacation, so new employees will not receive any vacation or accrue any for the first 3 months. And then we just changed some titles to reflect the current structure of the department after Rusty's joined us. So those are the main 4 items that have changed.
And how many total days were they giving back?
2 this year with the intent to give up 10 over the 3-year plan.
When you say intent to give over, that's,
It's in the
It-
agreement.
Yeah. it
but
would
that
be-
is gonna happen as long as they agree to the contract, right? Okay.
And, one of the things that we have such a difficult time, and Rusty can attest to this, we're trying to hire custodians now, and Tom actually too, his building is who we're looking for, and it is very, very difficult. And I hope this is a step in the right direction to get more applicants for our custodial positions and get some people to stay. But it's a step in the right direction. And I don't know, Bill, if you have anything to add,
No, I don't. They were very receptive to giving up days. Of course, as part of that, we'd have to make the commitment to increase salaries over the next 2 years, which we can't do now. In
So
order,
then
in
giving
order,
up the
in
day
order
is not
to
set in
reach
stone.
the levels that we need to be with based on the study that was done, this would be a 3-year increase of 4.67% per year.
And that was
But
the
we don't-
numbers you shared with us, right?
Right,
That
yeah.
entire 3-year.
So we can only, based on where we are financially, we can only commit to do that 1 year at a time. And for this year, it's effective January 1st, so we only have to fund half of that increase, which is why they agreed to give up only 2 days instead of 4.
And that amount is how much per year?
It's about $30,000.
A full year, this year it's half of that.
So over the next 2.5 years, you're looking at 75,000.
Yes.
With the
And we
10
get back 10 days.
And one thing, what was the cost of refinishing those gym floors? Do you remember? 1,000? And you do that how often? Well, that's what I was asking. Yeah. Well, I think this is a problem area we identified a year and a half ago, and was something that we knew that we needed to become competitive in the market. You know, just what the other entities in this community alone are paying for the same type of work. We've got people that, even though they're not teachers or coaches, they're interacting as much with the students as those people are. And so the ability to find quality people is important, and the only way you're going to be able to do that, or that we've been able to do that, is with pay. And I think it's definitely something that's been in our plans, and does look at a long-range goal of solving this. It also reduces what was a problem of the 20 paid or holidays, and reduces that to 10, although it'd always be great if we could do it overnight, but we can't. And so it does do that over the next 3 years. And you know, I think, you know, with the additional things that Rusty's having them do, the offset to us we may actually be ahead of the game on it. You know, those maintenance coats on the gym floors, the increased level of clean, I guess if you could call it, that's going to be required, and, you know, revisiting those issues. So I think we'll get our money out of it, and probably quite a bit more.
Is there a motion on the table?
I would move to approve the negotiated agreement with the SEIU.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Schwartz, second by Board Member Bickle. Any discussion? Any more discussion?
Just to touch on the study, we were quite a ways below the average. I don't remember the percentage of how far below we were for those positions, but we were
I don't recall the numbers
quite a
offhand.
ways below.
Right, below the city in 4 days on Hayes Medical Center, we were considerably lower for the same positions.
Something that's been fairly long.
It was about 14%.
Address this.
Was that what it was?
14%.
Because the 4.67, take that over 3 years, would get us to where we should
They
be
are
right
now, and that was what
That's
the
about
discussion
14%.
was. By then, theirs is probably gonna be higher, but at least we're making strides.
Okay. Call for the vote if there's no other discussion. All those in favor as approving how the SEIU negotiations is proposed, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Rusty, I'd like to thank you and your crew for negotiating with us to go ahead and start increasing some of those workdays like you do for us.
If I could, real quick, I'd just like to thank Dean and Tracy and Bill for putting this together. I mean, I know a lot of it started with Tracy on the salary piece of it early on, and this working with Fort Hayes and getting the study and the Eurozone people, and I think great job of checking something off the list that needed to be addressed. So.
Okay. On to next item, the enrollment fee discussion for next school year, 15-16. Dean, you want to go ahead?
Yes, the proposal is to leave the fees where they currently are. When we approved these last year, it was a one-year increase for activity fees at the middle school and high school, and the workbook/material fee was increased from $100 to $160. What the proposal is to leave them what they currently are, and that is $160 for workbook material fees, $66 at the high school for activity fee, $62 at the middle school for an activity fee, and then address the technology fee when we get a decision made on what we're going to do in the near future. So that's what the recommendation is, but
Tracy, all those the budget figures you showed earlier, is that taking these fees into account, basically assuming that they were stated as is?
The workbook material, the workbook material fund is included in the budget that you see every month. The activity fees funds are held at the schools, and you're also given that report on a monthly basis, but the activity funds are not included in that, in the board report I give, but the workbook material fee is.
But our budgeting philosophy, I guess, Lance, is, I mean, we are figuring on that increase in fees as we look at next year's budget. If not, we're going to have to subtract that out of where we are right now. And we haven't done that yet, but we would have to, what did we say, we have about $320,000 that we collect in those fees. I mean, we would still collect some of that, but not as much. And it has made a big difference. When we look into the future, the textbook fees and material fees, those can be carried over and then do a purchase of material or textbooks in the future if we need. And I don't know what we'll have for carryover there. Any idea? If anything, I don't know. Kind of depends what happens at the peak. But that was the
But short of something changing there, or the LOB passing or something like that, where there's not any additional ways to make up that money that we have in the budget.
Now, as we make future technology decisions, especially at the high school, potentially at the middle school, does that textbook dollar figure change? I mean, are we looking at online resources that could possibly be cheaper?
Well, I think we would have to look at devices. If a decision's made to send devices home, I think we would have to look at what that insurance or whatever you want to call it, policy would be, what that would cost. I just received, and this is a pretty common question right now across the state, I just received a survey this evening or this afternoon about another school district asking that same question. If your students take home a device, I think they currently charge, the high school charges $30 for their technology fee, which this district also did, but they were talking about increasing it to $50 or an additional $50 for elementary and anybody that chose to take that device home. That would cover the insurance or the deductible then if something happened to that device. That's a whole other discussion, but yeah, we would have to have that discussion.
Okay, maybe I didn't state that correctly. What I'm wondering is, does the cost that we put towards workbook, or whatever you want to call it, textbooks, change if we move to an online digital version versus a hard copy? And therefore, are we taking that into account when we budget this type of money?
We would still have to purchase apps, or if you do an online textbook, you still have to purchase something. I don't know costs. We had talked about a little bit, but or more.
Changing the format of it and being more cost effective down the road
down the road, but we don't even get those materials or new technology, so it's just going to be balancing that out. But right now, we don't have a textbook fund, but that might be something that we can revisit again down the road.
So where does this money go? Well, we're collecting for workbook and,
We're using it for all classroom supplies, things like that. And yes, our goal was just to start a textbook fund that does carry over. You know, we never would collect enough in 1 year to actually purchase a whole textbook series. So if that changes and looks differently now, that's very possible. But we're still going to need that money to purchase those types of items in whatever format they might be.
Right now, when we have purchased textbooks, they've always been purchased through no-fund warrants. Meaning that, you know, we go to the bank and borrow that money, pay it off in 3 to 4 years. I don't know exactly what's been done. And we would like to get away from that to where we can actually make a purchase of, whether it's a textbook or the online version. We really want to go to open resource, to where there wouldn't be that cost. But that's going to take some doing. It's not going to happen for a year anyway. So.
But the problem as I see it, and what we've run into is, I think the no-fund warrants, the first time that you have that option, if you don't have a fund, you can pass the no-fund warrant, and then you set up the fund, and the money goes into that fund, so then the next time you buy textbooks, you have the money sitting there. Essentially, you're taxing again, but we don't have that. We've spent it all, and so we're going to be in the same boat again. And I mean, the way I read that statute, I don't think you can do it the second, and third, and fourth time. But I think we've already done it the second and third time at least, and maybe the fourth. But I don't know where that leaves us from an entity's perspective, because you know, we are spending it, and you know, it's another area we're borrowing from.
And that's my only concern, like I said, is with doing that. I realize we need the money and stuff. I don't like the fact of having to leave the fees in place. I know it was 1 year, and we did say that we would revisit it again.
Right.
But having said that, I don't foresee us coming into a windfall of money anytime soon to offset a lot of that.
If something happens, I mean, we can reduce it whenever. I'm not going to recommend we increase it any more,
and I agree. I mean, I've had comments of, you know, people saying it's excessive and everything else. I agree, it's probably excessive, but having said that, though, I mean, eventually I'd love to get back to where it's free, you know, as far as not having to worry about all those fees, but I don't see a way to recoup that money any other avenue short of, as you said, making a whole bunch of other cuts. Because if I remember right, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 190,000 or something that the additional fees or something like that brought in, I think. Something like that. 230. So.
I think before we get any further into discussion, is there a motion on the table? Any one of the three?
I'll make a motion to approve the school fees for the 2015-16 school year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Schwartz, second by Board Member Patterson. Open the floor for more discussion.
And Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, we can go ahead and enact this tonight, so it's in place. But if we would have a windfall, if the governor would do something to help schools out, we can take that back off before the school year.
Exactly.
And what we're doing tonight is letting parents know
to plan
9 months in advance where they need to be.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
And I'd just like to add to the public as to what Lance was going off of. This isn't something that we look forward to doing, is putting parents with a lot of fees, especially multiple children. But when we look at it, to us, it's a difference of, do we continue with the education we have, or do we lessen that opportunity for kids? And I don't know if I'm speaking for the whole board, but I would assume that, you know, we're going to stick with the quality of education we're giving it. So as Board Member Patterson had made motion of their really giving everybody months in advance instead of that 1 to 2 months as we did last year.
Well, and that's, yeah, I was one of those parents. You know, I had a high school kid, a middle school kid, and a grade school kid this year. You know, obviously it's what, $110 increase for the middle school and the high school kid, plus everything else that you pay for. it's unfortunate now. And this is a terrible topic. This isn't fun to discuss by any means. But anybody else been flooded with some phone calls and some emails and some even anonymous suggestions on what we can do to make all this happen? And I think now is the time that we just got to get it out, because there's some things that obviously we don't like to talk about, but messages are running rampant through our community that seem to be contrary to maybe some of the ideas that we're doing, following administration, board created, it doesn't matter. We've talked about some areas. I mean, nobody likes the fees, right? Nobody likes it. We don't have the money to support ourselves on our own without these fees. What are our options? What do we really have that could make a difference in this? You know, one of them that we brought up, how I think it was last year, or at least early on, maybe this summer, was revisiting our curriculum. I mean, do we want to have the talks about shrinking down our curriculum and what we are going to offer? There's a money-saving idea. You bring it up, nobody seems to want to talk about that. You know, the next one is sports. For whatever reason, there's a maybe it's just a vocal minority, but it's out there. Whether it's on, you know, I have people call me from Hayes Post things that are on there, but this town is viewed as some sports town, and Hayes athletes and coaches get whatever they want. Correct me if I'm wrong. How long ago was? I mean, we have cut sports repeatedly for several years. I know while you were on the board.
Yeah.
Now it's whittled down to, what are we at, 2.3% of the budget. The state average looks to be around 4%. Realistically, is there an area in sports that we can cut and maintain our program?
I think we'd have to cut a program, cut a sport.
Cut a sport out.
Yeah.
What ramifications would that have on our school? I mean, we got to get some of this
Well,
out.
it's like curriculum, any extracurricular. I mean, if kids want to do that, they're going to find a place to do it, whether it's.
Your only other option on that.
Plainville,
So you cut back sports anymore, we can't fund a certain sport, be it boys or girls or both, and those students are most likely going to look elsewhere.
well,
Could be the possibility. But we've shrunk it so far. Would you say that there's much room to take anything else away from the sports at this time? And do you think the sports is causing us to have this shortage of cash for our school district?
no, I mean, not when you look at the number or the dollars that are generated from parents and fundraisers and all of those things to be able to do what we are doing.
And I know we've talked about it.
Right.
I know we've talked about this at some length, but apparently this is something that a lot of people don't know about. And I got 11 anonymous emails over the weekend saying just exactly that. So do we want to look at shrinking the curriculum? Do you want to look at cutting sports programs? I mean, these fees are kind of...
And the only other thing that I've heard of as far as on sports would be some sort of pay-to-play, but then you're looking at additional fees again as well, so.
Yeah, and the pay-to-play...
I don't know what the answer is to that, I'm just.
No, I mean, it's not something I think any of us are opposed to. You know, we researched it. A lot of the articles that we all came back to or that we've all seen is that it's a deterrent to fundraising. And some people will say, well, we don't care about the fundraising. Well, at the tune of about $200,000 a year or more, the fundraising is what keeps our programs afloat right now. So I don't know what the great answer to that is.
And I think that's shown in that report that Tracy pulled on all the sports stuff. If we didn't have those booster clubs and the fundraising, we wouldn't have half the sports that we do.
I think when you cut down to it, Kansas is supposed to have a free education. And so we went the other way last year, and I made the motion tonight. I did it to get it here for discussion. There's another option out there, I think, is the LOB. I think last year it was about $160,000 for a 1%. And I think this year, we would, if you wanted to go above that, you'd have to actually have an election to have to 32 or 33%. But you could look at a 2% increase, which would offset those fees. But what I don't want to do, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is it's not fun to talk about cutting programs at the high school or the middle school, or cutting out a sport or two or three or four, or all of it. I mean, and you know, we have a lot of extras at every level, even though we have made a lot of cuts. But I think, I like the concept and what Marty had brought up, you know, is getting ahead of the curve and talking about this now, but looking at all the other options in between, you know, and deciding and prioritizing what's more important. You know, is it more important to pass the fees on? It's easier, I know. I mean, it's a lot easier to do that than to sit down and debate every course that they've got at the high school and middle school, because those are the ones that are likely would get cut. But unfortunately, I don't know how else you do it.
Well, we're at that threshold, right? I mean, we can't raise fees again. I mean, I just don't. Or not for, but we should be working the other way. We should be working to lessen that burden. And I will say, you know, living in this community now for almost 20 years, for this community, for what the staff brings, I'll be honest with you, I don't mind paying it because I think I'm getting that back tenfold. You know, I don't think it's even a question, especially the kindergarten. I mean, I think kindergarten at $150 is about as nice as you can possibly get by in this community. I mean, they came out of a daycare or a preschool situation where you're paying anywhere from, you know, some of them $400 a month. You know, now you're coming to. Has anybody been around to our schools, met these kindergarten teachers? They're fantastic. You know, they're amazing what they're doing. So I still think kindergarten fees should actually be a lot higher than what they are. But we're at the threshold now. You know what? What do we? I mean, the state's ambiguous. I can't make heads or tails about these cuts and what they're talking about. I mean, I think they're almost keeping it then on you. I mean, moving forward next year, things are going to be cut. Some plans are not working to where it's in favor for the school district. I mean, do we want to push some of these conversations off until next year, until it finally hits and you got your back against the wall and you got to pull a trigger?
Problem is, though, that's been done year after year. They get pushed off and we don't discuss them, and then we have the fees or the other things to offset that, but not discussing is the issue.
Because this year, you know, it's January. We're letting people know that more than likely these fees are gonna probably stay in place if the vote is to pass them tonight. No, that's nice to give some heads up, but to keep stability in our community, you know, you can't. Oh, we're gonna get through the school year. Here comes May, June, July. We got some changes. Bam, we got to hit you with this. So at what point do we become proactive? I mean, it's almost to the point to where we got to shrink everything back as tight as we possibly can. Hold on, so that we're not coming up here and saying, all right, it's going to be 16 teachers. All right, it's going to be 4 more teachers. It's going to be $50 more. You know, what do we need? What do we need to get by? And how do we get there? And I think a few of these things that we've put off, that we've mentioned before, have got to be discussed sooner rather than later. And I'm sorry to everybody that we've all got to shoulder this burden together. But you know what? We'll get through it. And a lot of times, you know, things get a little stronger for the wear. But I'm tired of dancing around a few of these issues.
Well, and I think some of the feedback we've been hearing it seems to imply that we passed this decision without a lot of discussion or thought. And I would like everyone to know that we do not, that this is a very difficult decision to approve this, but at this time, we believe this is what we need to do to weather this financial storm that we fear is coming. So I will vote for this. I do not want to. I think our fees are excessively high. I didn't care for the increase we made last year, and it is difficult to vote to plan this for next year, but I agree with Dean that we pass this tonight so that everyone can budget for it, with the hope that perhaps we'll be able to decrease it come this summer if we have good news out of Topeka.
I'll agree with you there, Sarah. The need to let people know up front that this is worst case scenario. We can lower the fees later, because if you look right now in the state, it's a very anti-public education mentality where they're trying to cut as much as they can. They've went so far to even blame the Kansas budget completely on Kansas education. And so pulling back those numbers, there's no possible way that we cannot take a cut next year. That would mean every other state entity would be taking a 20% reduction in their budget, and the state cannot function at that point in time. And so it is time that, as Josh said, do we really need all the programs or whatever we have out there, and where do we need to start peeling back?
Well, I don't want to diminish what you guys said. I don't want to try to say this in the best way I can, but I mean, I think we have put some time into this, but, and I made the motion to approve this, and I just did it to get it out there for discussion, knowing that kind of what I was going to bring up on this, but I just don't think I can support going forward raising fees. I understand that we've put people on notice that unless there's more, they're coming, and I think we've done that tonight, but I can't approve going forward unless we've done everything or a whole lot on our side to look at what are our other options, and at least to prioritize, to say, look, we've looked at it. We've gone through the course manual at the high school and said, we're going to, we ranked them from 1 to 100 or however many there are, and looked at what we could cut. We did the same at the middle and elementary schools, and then decided, how important is this class versus this $50 fee, or whatever the case may be, or, but I think if we're going to look at it, we've got to look at sports, we've got to look at the curriculum, we've got to look at pay and benefits and all of the things that go into it, because we talk about a windfall, and I don't think anybody up here thinks it's actually going to happen. I think we all know it's not. I mean, it's going to be the opposite. There's $700 million short for next year, and I mean, until they start talking about tax increases or implementing taxes, it's just not going to come in. I mean, and then Marty, you can attest to the severance tax on oil. It's going to, unless that comes back, and even if it does, it's probably going to drop quite a bit depending on how quickly it comes back. So then you're going to have even more votes.
But let's have a specific dollar amount when we do that. I mean, if we raised, I'm not sure what's the exact number? Do you have the exact number with what we generated going from the 100 to the 160 and the increase in the activity
You said it
fee?
was about 230,000.
No, I thought I heard 320.
I thought that was the
total.
It was
That was the total increase.
295 was the difference.
total.
Well-
But let's be honest, though. I mean, it's easy to sit up here and say that, well, if we get this money in, then we're going to repeal those fees and the other stuff. But everybody here knows there's probably a 99.9% chance that we're not going to get those money. Those fees are going to stay in place unless we go through and can do some of these other cuts or scale some things back.
I'm willing
do
to
that.
commit that if we put the LOB on the budget and we say 2%, and whatever that 2% is, I'm willing as a board member to commit that 100% of that will go to reducing fees. Now, the question becomes then what happens when the cuts come, and where are you going to get that from? And so
What
that's-
concerns me about that is one of the things we haven't yet done this year is, unless I'm wrong, Dean, is to assess the impact of the cuts that were made last year.
As far as,
Well, I mean, can we stomach
or-
what the
oh.
cuts that we made at the middle school,
Teachers?
teachers?
Yes.
Can we stomach the increased class sizes? And if we can't, then in my mind, that needs to be the priority, not reducing these fees.
Well, and that could, I'll agree with that, I think, but that goes into part of the big package of prioritizing everything
Right.
and figuring out what Josh said. What's the basics? What do we have to have? And then put all the extra on top of it and see. We talk about the bond issue too. It ties somewhat into this, but, I think we've got to, that's another big thing we've got to tackle as well. And some of that stuff goes into facility maintenance and needs. If that bond wouldn't pass, where's the money going to come from to pay those things? Because there's, deferred maintenance on a whole bunch of stuff that, hopefully we can keep patching it up and making it work another year, but eventually you're going to get hit with a big one.
the LOB question, that has to be a mail ballot. They changed the law last year,
Which was $20,000.
and that,
Now, does it allow for that increase the first year, and then everything drops back to 1% after that?
you do it for 1%, and then the board can increase it to 33 unless they change something this year.
But that's a one-year increase, right?
No.
Oh, that's permanent?
Last year. Last year, you could vote to 31, the board could go from 31 to 33 with a vote of the board, subject to a petition.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. But
And then it would go back.
But if we voted this year to go to 32 or 33, that's where it would stay until
We bring it down,
we
back
got
down.
it back.
And I think that's important that we bring out too, because I know there was a lot of people bringing that up, the fact that that was the reason they voted against it, because they knew that if it passed, that it was going to go from 31 to 33. But on the other hand, I'd rather be honest and let people know the intentions than to go through and have it pass at 31, and then we decide down the month, oh, by the way, we're going to bump it to 33 now since you approved it. So,
Right. That was the exact same concerns I heard from everybody that voted against it, was I would have voted for it if it would have stayed at 31, but we knew you were going to raise it to 33.
right, even though it was just a year.
Mhm.
The LOB, and I struggled with this one the first time. I think we're seeing now, and there's a lot of things that I don't think people do know, but looking at our budget, we're doing pretty well. Looking at some numbers in comparison to some years past, I would say that we're operating much more efficiently. Visiting with our work comp claims and seeing where we're at right now, I mean, we're showing an improvement. You know, I think Rusty could probably stand up here and talk about efficiency throughout his departments and what he's bringing to the table. You know, there's a lot of things that are improving. We are saving money in areas. You know, it's a great start. I don't think the LOB at this at last time, should have been a saving grace. You know, I think we're charged with making sure that we're doing the best with everything that we can. And I think we have started very well in that direction. You know, I wholeheartedly believe that. I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I think we've got to talk about all the viable solutions that exist, and you know, prioritizing, as Greg said, is a great place to start. Getting together. What do we need? What do we need first and foremost? I mean, I think that's a question that I can't even answer. I'm a school board member now for a year and a half. What do we need? Well, it's tough. I mean, you start to get into it, you get lost in that forest pretty easy, and before you find your way out, you need everything. And maybe we do. Maybe everything that exists right now is the only way it can be. I just think there's some things that we don't want to get into, nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to uncover it, and unfortunately, before we end up in a situation like where we were last year, because it's one whistle at the top that can change everything and put us right back where we were. And it could be a $5 million shortfall this time. And what are you going to do? I would like to have that plan, and I would like to work on it much sooner than later.
Well, and I think building upon that, Josh, we have to plan not just for maybe a $500,000 cut, but you've got to have a scenario to where you look at $1 million too, because otherwise we come back year after year and it's 2 months is what we have, and then we're scrambling and we have these meetings that last forever, trying to figure out last minute what we can do.
You raise fees because you
Yeah.
don't have any options because you're too late in the game to address all the other ways you could have.
Is there a way, Tracy, when you look at the high school and all the curriculum, all the different options out there, to put a cost with each one of those, where we have a class with 5 students compared to a class with 10, and get a per course cost?
I think you could probably do that pretty easy, figure out what the instructor is, and then have any other additional costs, and take the number of enrollees and divide it out. But I think, my thought process on this, you know, for instance, I know the high school is going to be the main focus on this, and those guys back there look very enthused about this discussion, but I mean, they're going to be the ones that have to, for me, I wouldn't be comfortable relying upon a list or just us up here saying, well, I don't think that class is very important, so let's put it at the bottom. I think the first step in this process would be you know, asking the administrators and the staff out there to prioritize their own list. And same at every building. And they're the ones, they know the biggest impact.
I agree.
You know, and the Facility Needs Committee did, I think, a very remarkable job. Is this going to get better? Is the money going to turn around? Is base state aid per pupil going to change in our favor? I don't know. But it's even, you know, you look at the Atchison model of consolidation, and I don't know. I mean, moving forward, is it best to maintain everything as is, spend $100 million on a bond for schools when, you know, consolidation might be the only saving grace moving forward? I don't know. I love the idea of neighborhood schools and keeping everything the same. I don't like last year having to go home and know that 16 families plus were being greatly affected because honestly part of it was we hadn't done our job over the past, I don't know how long. You know, could it have been avoided? Maybe it could have been. And I don't want to come to the situation again knowing that some things could have been avoided because, well, we didn't want to talk about them. They're not very fashionable conversations.
Do we want to go ahead and vote on this and add what Josh was mentioning there to an agenda item for the work session?
I was going to comment that in March, and I know that's later, but there's 4 meetings or 2 work sessions and 2 board meetings scheduled in March now, but we can start. I think we almost need to do like a retreat and have this one and only topic on there, or we just spin our wheels doing it.
So is it worth voting on this now if until we've discussed all this other stuff?
And I don't think it's a problem doing a retreat. And you know, if we need to meet more in February and before that, I mean, I'm willing to do it. Although I say that I know that there might be one meeting or 1 week in February I couldn't do it, but otherwise, I mean, I think, you know, there's never a good time to do it. But I just want to make sure when we do it, that before we do it, everybody knows what our expectations are, and so when we have the meeting, all the answers are there, that we don't have to, you know, we talk and don't accomplish anything and then have to have,
Right, that's my point.
you know, a bunch more meetings because the idea of what we wanted wasn't conveyed or wasn't understood, so.
Well, on February 9th, I mean, at that work session, I think we need to focus on this topic and then decide if there's a time then.
Putting you on the spot, Dean, can I, just to kind of alleviate that, I mean, you've heard everything, I'm just curious, what is it that you think the message is out of this meeting tonight? Because I think that's, if you say something different now than what we think, this would be probably the easiest way to address that, but, and maybe having you put something in writing later in the week would be the better way to do it.
Well, no, I mean, I think what you're asking is to look at the big, broad picture of where we are financially and what can we afford and what can't we afford, whether it's academics, I mean, obviously take into account all the cuts that were made this year, see where we are, what recommendations we may have that we need to change based on what happened last year, and then look at the other curriculum areas, including extracurricular areas, and see where we are.
And I assume that would include administrative needs, sports needs, education, basically a top to bottom review of the entire budget and analyzing.
Well, yeah,
what,
as
if
much as we
anything, we
can
can
in that time frame, but yeah, I mean, looking at.
Well, and I think another key to that would be institutional controls on spending as well, to make sure that we've got all of that in place. I know that's something we prioritized, and I know we're working towards that, but I think we need to make sure that those are in place so we, you know, even the little, you know, items add up to big items. And I just think we're in a position we can't waste any free dollars. And if we need to carry it over to next year, I'm not, maybe they'll get it all figured out in Topeka this year, but I don't, the way they're headed is to fight what the lawsuit came back with, that they need more funding, and if that's the way you're going to start out, it doesn't lend itself too well to additional fundraising measures.
Okay, well, we did have a motion on the table here, and I think we ought to move forward with it for the simple purpose of letting parents know for next year that these fees will be in place unless something drastically changes where we can find cuts in the budget, because we can always pull them back down, but it's really hard and difficult to put them back up.
Do we need to vote on that? Or have we sent the message, is where we're at?
Well, there's a motion.
There's a motion to vote.
You're the one who made the motion, take it off the table. I don't know that I can, but I could make a motion, I'd make a motion to table this until we've completed our look into the other areas to cut.
So you
I'd
want
second that.
to rescind that motion?
Just table it.
Okay.
We have to vote on it, table it?
Yeah.
So this will be discussion for that motion then now?
Yeah.
And then we got to go back and get rid of the other motion? Is
Well,
that
if it's
right?
tabled, then it's done. If
Okay.
it's not tabled, then you go back.
Are we going, I mean, we're not going to raise fees above and beyond what's proposed here, right?
Right. Basically, this is tabling it right now with the understanding if nothing were to change, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, if nothing were to change, the fees for this past year would be implemented for the coming 15-16 year. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, but I think, one thing, and I think if you do that, you're looking at like, if you had a proposal to do anything with kindergarten fees, I don't think you're committed to anything, because I think you can change the fees all the way up to the beginning of the school year. Not a good idea, but if you're thinking about changing any of the fees, and you vote on this now, I think you send a wrong message, but I told everybody where I was at on it before, so.
Okay, so motion by Greg, and then Lance, you had seconded that?
Table.
To table. All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, let's raise hands on that one. All those for tabling, aye? Raise your hand. Okay, opposed? 2. Motion carries 5-2. Up next is a board meeting agenda calendar. This was actually something I had brought up at the work session. I believe there's actually 2 parts to this. The first one would be the day of the week of the meeting, and then the second one would be the time of the meeting. And this kind of came up actually by accident, but in discussing it with many people, I know a lot of people have difficulty prepping or getting here on Mondays. Mondays is not a really conducive day for them for a board meeting, and so I'd just like to kind of open that up and see what everybody's thought process is on that, if there's any idea or any motion to move the date, and then also time of the meeting to either move it forward or move it back on that set date. I guess I'll make a motion so we can start discussion. I would move that we move the board meeting dates to Wednesday evenings with a time to be determined by another motion.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by myself, second by Board Member Patterson. Okay, open up for discussion.
I guess my concern is really the time to be making this due to the fact that we may have 4 new board members coming up with the other stuff on there. So, I mean, it's been one of those deals where obviously I understand things can change, but I mean, everybody knew when they ran, it was Monday nights that we were going to meet.
Right.
So,
But I think it's also time to look, if we do have new board members, that they may know that that date can change too.
I think, I agree. I think the meeting date can change. I don't know if now's the time. I mean, personally, the Wednesday date doesn't work for me. That's probably the only date that I can make the others, but as we talked at the work session, I think Tuesdays and Thursdays may be bad for others, and so, I'm just used to Mondays being school board meetings, and it's, cleared it out for a while, but, for me, that I would be opposed to a Wednesday move.
I would, actually, Wednesday's not, it doesn't have to be Wednesdays, but as I looked at it, all of our award banquets are on Mondays, all of our athletic banquets are on Mondays, all of our school meetings are on Mondays, site councils are on Mondays, roundups are typically on Mondays. And so Wednesdays was the evening that really there's no school functions.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And you have religion,
And that was
things
brought,
like that.
Is it counterproductive for us to want more people at the meetings and then tie up a lot of time on Wednesday when parents have a lot of responsibilities, shuffling kids to and from religion, etc. That was a question that was asked. I think it's a legitimate question, but I think it's something we need to consider. Truthfully, I haven't seen participation at board meetings go up at all yet. But it was great that somebody stood up there tonight. I wish we had better answers for it on some of that stuff.
Right.
But, you know, bless her heart for getting up and asking it.
Wednesdays work better for me, you know, and Greg's on the board. He's been president in the past. You're the president now, and I've filled in that just a little bit. Trying to get ready for a board meeting on Monday night when you have a job on Monday is you know, that's the busiest day for a lot of people. So, you know, it really puts a lot of pressure on the president of this board to try to get ready for that, whether they use their weekend to do it. And obviously, we don't have administration to talk to on Sunday because they're not here. I mean, you really have to have a lot of dialogue with administration leading up to a board meeting. So, you know, I would be in favor of a Wednesday move, but you know, if it's going to cause a lot of confusion with the other board members, knowing that 4 of us could change out if we don't run or some more people. Nobody's
Someone's
put in
gotta
their
put in for a
application
date.
yet, so I was hoping there was going to be 20 of them in by now. But
Well, my proposal would be is that we keep it open for discussion and look at it in April after we figure out who's on the board. And then, you know, that's just me. I mean, I think the message I would want to send out is that there's no law that says that it has to be on Monday nights. And I mean, I think it always has been, or just as long as I remember, but I'm sure sometime it may have been a different time. But I think, you know, we just, it would be one thing that I'd want to almost have it out there for a little while longer and get some input. But you could get 4 members that want to do it Saturday morning. And unfortunately, if they vote that way, that's how it's going to be. You know, and so, but I think it'd be more confusing to change it now and then come back. And, you know, if nothing else, you could always have it when we look at the calendar for next year. Do one for Mondays and do one for Wednesdays, and then decide it later.
Okay. I was looking at it for the same reasons as Marty. Is really, if you're working or have a position on the weekends where your job's open, then Mondays are pretty hectic to try to get things wrapped together by 6:30. So, any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor, aye? Aye.
Sorry, aye. Well,
Okay.
yeah,
No discussion?
sorry, I think I'm in agreement that we should wait. I mean, the calendar's set for this year.
Oh, I'm not saying move it right now.
Oh, okay. But I just, I think that, given that we have 4 seats open, this board can look very different in April, or whenever it starts. And therefore, those people ought to have a hand in changing the meeting. I don't think it does us any good to change it now if we're not planning for it to take effect until the future.
Yeah, were you gonna say anything?
Well, I was actually asking a question. I apologize there. So the vote then is to change?
Yeah, to Wednesdays.
The motion was to change it to
No,
Wednesday.
let's vote on the motion.
Yeah. All right, let's try this again. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion fails, 5-2. All right, on to discussion by board members and agenda requests. And then Dean, you've already got for the agenda the policy for tech purchases?
I'm sorry, what?
The policy for tech purchases?
For
to start.
Upcoming, yeah.
Yeah, doing that. And then also figuring costs from the middle school to Roosevelt.
Yes. Well, I think we better look at pretty
Busing
much
to all
everywhere.
Okay.
And on the busing issue, I mean, if you intended to bring it back up in the spring, I mean, I can understand that, but if the decision was made, we're gonna wait a year, and that's where we're gonna be. One of my notes I had to address later was, you know, some of these things we gotta address and put to bed and then just move on.
Well, this one we mentioned at a work session earlier, and I think we were at the middle school or someplace, and then that was when everybody kind of, we made a decision, get through the year, and but I'll, you know, come up with a price. And that's why we didn't follow through with trying to find out the parents, because we had no intention at that time of pursuing it and saying, oh, we're going to start busing, or we will. I just fear we're going to end up right where we were.
You're going to open up a can of worms.
Transportation-wise, if we say that. I mean, I know it's an inconvenience, but a lot of people have overcome that challenge.
And I know that's the discussion we had. I guess I'm still uncomfortable with not knowing what that number is. Much like when Lance asked to republish the numbers for the athletic cost. You know, I would rather we be able to say, if it's not too much effort, this is what it would cost us, and at this time we can't afford it. And that's our response versus we fear we're going to open a can of worms.
No, I understand.
And I agree that cost, but if the decision was made for the year, and we want to review that as part of next year's budget, I'm all for that, but I just don't, you know, because then it becomes what decision's final on anything. You know, and I mean, I don't want to get too, it's not that big of an issue for me, but it's just one of those things that, I guess for Dean, if he was in that point, but I think if we know a number, it's easy to just say what it is.
Well, and it would be timely, though, as we are looking at the budget
Next year.
for next year to
I can
have
put
that number.
together, or have Russ put together what it would take, and he'll have a pretty, that shouldn't be too difficult to find out how many buses, and I mean, we need to look at all of those things, and I think it will surprise people.
So even if we had the numbers, I mean, we got fees. And before I would ever consider making those busing calls again, that affects a few. I mean, wouldn't we strip all of our fees back before we would do something like that?
That's assuming we're paying for this. But what I would like to know is this is what it would cost, and if we pass that fee in whole on to
If
parents.
it's self-funded,
Yeah.
self-supported.
Sure, yeah.
Just
But I'd like to know what that number is.
Right.
And previously, we were kind of waiting as we got into the school year and looked at optimizing our routes and that sort of thing. So by now, I would hope that we're kind of there.
And I don't think we can charge, if I remember right, anyone that is on free or reduced lunches.
Can we get a firm answer on that?
Yeah, and I'm 90% sure, but we will find out. But I don't think you can charge anybody free or reduced a transportation fee.
And then, I mean, the other big question is how many parents are we talking about? I mean, if it's 1 to Lincoln, you know, versus 15 or 20 to Roosevelt, I mean, that's a
My
different
kids
situation.
always rode the bus from Hayes Middle School back to Roosevelt. It's full.
I mean, that's what I've heard. But, so I think, and I'm not sure the easiest way to get that number.
So would this be one trip a day or 2 trips?
From Roosevelt to the middle school, and then the middle school to Roosevelt.
So, okay.
This is what I think we've done in the past, or last year.
We've done a morning bus, is what you're saying?
Is that right? Do you know? Or there wasn't?
I'm not sure, but I thought it was just an afternoon.
I thought the issue was picking up at 3 o'clock when people are working full-time and weren't able to leave
Now,
work
I'll
at 3 to get a child picked up.
Find out.
Those are middle school age kids.
We also had a bus, like I said, several elementary, some public library, and so if we're serving parents, we have to have a requirement.
Dean, could you work with Craig on figuring out the best way to survey parents? And I agree, we need to be very specific. I mean, I think if we're gonna do this, we need to state, would you use this for a fee, you know? Because I, in no way can think we can justify this as a district expense.
Would this be more of a home and school should do the surveying? I mean, is this something that the school district should be in charge of, finding out how many parents would be interested in this? I mean, it's not an idea generated by us necessarily. I mean, I think there's probably some parents groups that would take the lead on this if it's important. I'm just gonna have a hard time dedicating man hours to go and research how many parents are interested in this. I don't know.
Well, I guess the first question you have to ask is, since we got rid of buses this year, do we first off have enough buses to even do it? Because if we're running short right now on buses, you're basically looking at purchasing a bus. Yeah,
Yeah, so we can find out the cost. That would be the first step, like Sarah requested. If it's $9,000 or $14,000 a year, well, here's how much it is.
Craig or Shanna, somebody, I'm just curious, how, other than tonight, when was the last time you heard about this?
We've heard it off and on all year from certain individuals, but it has not been a big issue. It was a bigger issue as the weather got colder. We do have a lot for kids walking, but our attendance rate has stayed very nice. People have made adjustments.
I mean, do you have a ballpark of how many people have requested? Talking 5, 10, 20, 50?
I've probably had less than 5 call me about it.
Concerned about kids walking in the cold. That'll be the problem. They're not, when the weather's nice, the kids walk. So that'll be another, if we set up around, and get in the bars, people may, if they not use it, if they have to pay.
I think the question was asked, what it costs us per mile with insurance and everything else. And we calculated when we discussed this last year, $5.92 a mile.
How many
So
schools?
you said that's with maintenance and everything else in there?
Yes.
With the cost of the bus.
Yes, maintenance, health insurance for the driver, yeah, everything we looked at.
What's the cost of one bus over the course of 10 years, broken down into that $5.92?
I don't think the bus was
I don't think we
included in
looked at
that.
Yeah, we'll have to check
Yeah.
that, because if you,
I think that was short the bus and short administration, if I
yeah, there
remember
was
right.
another
Yeah.
figure, but we'll find it.
Okay. That's it. That's not right. We've got most of that readily available. It's not gonna take like a bunch of man hours to have Tracy come back and do this and all this.
No, it's just finding it. Yeah, we had that all put together.
Yeah, that one.
All right, any other discussion or agenda requests? Okay, I would make a call for executive session to discuss non-elected personnel with just members of the board. Okay, so, and I will add as another potential item, negotiations, which may include the superintendent, director of finances, board attorney. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. And then we'll ask those members to leave. For total executive session of 45 minutes, beginning at 8:15 to conclude at 9 o'clock. Although, or I guess I need a second on that. Seconded by Board Member Schwartz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
That's 14. I don't think they did.